Hello there and welcome. It's breakfast all day from the paradise of Palos Verdes. We have peacocks, we have doggies, we have trees and sunshine. It's magical. Come on down. We're going to talk about now. This is a real treat for us, I think, because this is legitimately probably the worst movie of the year. I keep a running list as the year goes on of movies that are really terrible, like Serenity. That batshit crazy Matthew McConaughey movie.
I didn't see that yet.
That was not good. But again, it must be seen. This too, The Fanatic, is terrible and insane, and yet it must be seen. I'm going to describe it to you in the simplest possible way. It is Rain Man meets Misery. And if that sounds like your cup of tea, we've got a movie for you. The four most terrifying words in the English language, directed by Fred Durst. This is a Fred Durst movie.
No, directed by Uwe Boll has that beat. Come on.
I don't know. There's at least a smidgen of style with Uwe Boll. That he's got an oeuvre, if you will. Right? This is just a mess. John Travolta plays a man on the spectrum named Moose. Who is obsessed with celebrities. He lives in Hollywood. He goes to the comic book and movie and poster store all the time to get more paraphernalia. He's a big horror movie fan, obsessed with horror films. And he hears that his idol, Hunter Duncan, played by Devon Sawa, this like action hero who is his God, is going to be at the store. He's going to be doing a signing. And Moose is just pumped about this. Which is, from the very beginning, I need to tell you that John Travolta stayed in character on set.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It's a really mannered and twitchy and shrieky and shrill performance. And in between takes, he stayed in character and people called him Moose. I know this because Nick Allen, one of our writers at RogerEbert.com, did an interview with Travolta.
Was he in character for the interview?
No.
It's like, oh no.
No. He didn't take it that far, but
don't act like that's a crazy question. Come on.
Yes. That's not, given everything that happens in this film. So Moose gets really, really pumped about the prospect of seeing his idol here, and then when he gets to the front of the line for the signing, Hunter walks away. Hunter Duncan, right? Is that his name?
Sure.
I think so. And I just watched this yesterday. And he becomes obsessed with him and shows up at his house and just says he wants him to just sign something. I'm your number one fan. I just want you to sign this thing for me.
Hunter Dunbar.
Oh, sorry. Hunter Dunbar. Thank you very much. Who's Hunter Duncan? I'm thinking of Duncan Hunter, who was the congressman down in San Diego. Anyway, Hunter Dunbar. I apologize to you, Fred Durst, for getting the name of your character wrong. And he keeps coming back to the guy's house and showing up and getting more and more familiar and more intimate. His only friend in the world, this young woman who's a paparazzo, is like, you can't do that. You cannot invade their privacy like this. But he doesn't think he's doing anything wrong. And the depiction of this man on the spectrum is totally reprehensible because he is bullied, he is vilified, he is misunderstood, and at every turn, people are cruel to him, and they're not using that notion to explore the horrific treatment of people who might have some kind of developmental disability. It's not that. It's like I feel like they're making fun of him the whole time.
Right. This seems to be pointing fingers at the obsessive fan, right? And you know, look, like you go to a comic convention, and not that Moose is more of a horror movie. He's like a horror fan. He's not a comic guy. But you see those types. Like you know, we've seen plenty of these types in the real world that struggle with regular day-to-day human interaction. But this portrayal, this character is so out there. And, you know, you do have this idea of like, it is somewhat surprising that this person could actually be like allowed out on their own. Like, how is this person actually pulling enough money to pay rent and stay Like,
because his gig is that he's one of the people on Hollywood Boulevard. If you've ever been to LA, and if you've gone to Hollywood Boulevard, I'm so sorry, but there's like people who are dressed like Jack Sparrow and Spider-Man and
out
Superman.
Front of the Chinese theater, you'll see.
They try to get pictures and they get tips and.
Right. Same thing you see in Times Square in New York, right? Like they'll get your picture and they hit you up for money, or they'll be street performers, they're busking, whatever. The thing is, like, he's doing this British Bobby character, this British policeman, and among other things, I'm like, man, that guy's not going to make any money. Like, and I can only imagine it's because they didn't get the rights to actually do anything, or there wasn't anything that would be at all believable. But like,
you see no actual characters.
But you'd see like, well, you see one. There's some also weird references in this. Like, there's one other character, this guy who's like doing street magic or something, and one of the people in the crowd looking at him is someone called Cereal Man, and it's this big dude with a cereal box on his head, and I was like, that is almost Powdered Toast Man from Ren and Stimpy, and I thought that's a really weird reference. And then, you know, at one point there's an app that shows celebrities' addresses, and some of the names are like Jack Torrance from The Shining or Tyler Durden from Fight Club.
And then the most shameless of all is that Devon Sawa and his son, who's probably like 11 or 12 years old, they're riding in the car together. They're going to school or something. And he says, "You want to listen to some Limp Bizkit? Do you like Limp Bizkit?" So they can just play a Limp Bizkit song in the car. I don't know why, of all the movies in all the world, of all the stories to tell, why is this the one that Fred Durst was so driven to tell? I don't know. Is it an exploration of how awful fans are? Because that's really the takeaway, is that fans are awful, predatory parasites, and they just want in your life, and they don't understand your need for privacy. And Devon Sawa's character doesn't handle it very well either. He's not the best guy either.
No.
But like, I don't understand what the point is that he's trying to make here. Don't be a fan.
Right? Like, there's a series of movies that are about how problematic, how troubling it is, how hard it is to be famous, right? There's The Fan with Wesley Snipes, and he's the baseball player, and it's De Niro. There's Misery, which is probably the best one.
Right. Big Fan is also excellent, with Patton Oswalt as the obsessed
very
sports
good.
fan.
But there's a few, you know. Then there's the what's the Mel Gibson movie, the paparazzi movie, where like the paparazzi are chasing the actor and almost cause an accident. Anyway,
there's Woody Allen Celebrity. I mean,
right?
Whatever.
Like, there's a bunch of those movies.
This has no insight, by the way.
And very, like, I don't think all that many of them have that much insight.
It's hard being famous. We can attest to that.
Right. It's a bit churlish, I think, to like, oh, look how terrible it is. I mean, look, like, don't get me wrong. People get stalked, and there's a danger there. Absolutely. I'm not trying to act like that's not a problem. And I think that there are plenty of things around, you know, especially the access available on the internet, that has ramped that up much, 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 much worse. But if you're going to explore the life of an obsessive person on the spectrum and what they'll do, this is not the example. Like, this is almost like, it's almost like like the movie is bullying that whole idea.
Why make him autistic? Like, why do that? Or whatever it is that is...
Right, or Asperger, or whatever it is, right?
I mean, he's got this incredible brain for, like, details from movies, and there's like a social awkwardness, and there's like a rocking back and forth, and there's like a volatility to his emotions and the tone of his voice. I mean, Travolta is incredibly shrieky in this. I mean, there are some lines that do you laugh? Do you cry? I don't know what we're supposed to do as far as reacting. I felt so uncomfortable so often. It feels so inauthentic. There's not a shred of like grace or generosity in the depiction of this character.
Right, and they make him so childish. Like, there's no grown-up, there's no adult in there. There's no, like, even when he goes to the extremes that he goes to, like, it's not evil. It's not, like, it's never like, oh, you've rejected me, I'm taking my revenge. It's more just like, oh, please.
It's very innocent. His intentions are very innocent, but then awful things happen because of them, because he's very insistent. It gets ugly. Anyway,
You know, like they tell us in Tropic Thunder, never go full return.
No, yeah. And this is, and again, in this interview,
Right.
I recommend you go read it on RogerEbert.com because Travolta is able to impart more insight into his instincts here than we actually visibly experience watching him on film. It's totally, the choices are baffling. And
then there's like a narration from
yeah,
the friend that then kind of
narrates.
disappears. And
it's like a film noir kind of like
Yeah.
tough gal look at
Oh, this movie,
Hollywood's
yeah.
a place of lies.
yeah.
There's so much going on here.
And sometimes the bullshit will eat you alive. Like,
And then at one point and again, there's so many homages and so many inside jokes here. Toward the end, when Travolta's character Moose is walking down Hollywood Boulevard, the camera is following behind the back of his feet like it's an homage to Saturday Night Fever, but it's like he's sort of shuffling because at that point he's kind of a mess, and so it's like, look, here's a thing you know, but it's different. It's
Right.
like, and there's no insight there either. It's like, oh, look, Travolta used to do stuff that was good, and now he's in my piece of shit movie.
yeah, I think it's dangerous when filmmakers do really, really obvious homages to better films and iconic films. Like, if you are good enough, great.
Yeah.
Like, if you've got a really solid film, but, I think you run the risk of like, man, if your movie's already bad, don't keep reminding me of better movies.
Yeah.
I mean, look, like, I don't think I doubt I can't imagine you think you're making that bad movie at the time, but
I'm sure he meant well, but I'm still boggled as to what the thought process was here. Anyway, I'm giving this a 0. At this point, this is the worst movie of the year, and yeah, I cannot recommend it highly enough. It has to be experienced. I feel like it's really short too. It's like 89 minutes long.
yeah, it's still too long. Still entirely too long. Normally a movie gets points for being that short, and maybe at best that brings it up from a negative number, so it gets a 0 from me.
All right, our number's a 0. It's at 23% on the tomato meter.
I mean, somebody liked it.
I don't really know who liked it. I don't even know who went easy on it. I'm boggled all around. I'm confused.
Wow.
Yeah, don't see it. It is the end of summer. It's a terrible time, but things will look up soon because next week It Chapter 2 comes out. Are you going to It Chapter 2
Yes.
next week? It is like 2 hours and 41 minutes long. Are you aware of
So
that?
it's It 2 and 3?
It is long. I guess originally there was like a 4-hour long cut of it, which, it'll get release the director's cut. So we'll have that for you next week. I don't know if Alonzo is back next week or not.
That's a good question.
I don't know. I know he's in Venice currently. Hopefully he'll come back. Anyway, in the meantime, though, you are all lovely for hanging out with us. If you are not already, please follow us in all the places where we can be followed. Don't stalk us like Moose. That's the other thing. He keeps flipping out whenever anybody says he's a stalker. I'm not a stalker. That's like the thing that makes him snap. It's like the thing that he's fine, and then someone says the word stalker and he snaps. Follow us, though, in the safe places like Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. We are at Be Fast All Day in all of those places. We have a Patreon if you want to get more yummy goodness from us, patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. Please like the videos and please rate us on the podcast places. We really, really appreciate it. It helps so much to help other folks find us.
Yes.
So thank you for all of that. And, on Monday, you get to listen to the a la carte interview that I recorded in Boston while I was out of town with legendary sports writer and columnist and author and a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame. His name is Dan Shaughnessy. And we've known him for like 15 years. He's a really old, dear friend of ours. So while I was in Boston with him, I actually went and I recorded a podcast with him.
Fun.
At the Boston Globe podcast office. Not nearly as scenic as my dining room table in Palos Verdes, however. It was nice. So thank you all for hanging out. Thank you for coming down here. Thank you for making the schlep. It can be done. You arrived in one piece. And thanks to all of you. Bye.
Bye.